something that just is incredibly powerful. The community creates this pressure around this idea and then kind of lifts this idea to life. I saw this, beautiful blue color. I saw this kind of renewable energy. I saw this kind of nature-made thing. It's not like artificial. It's just like a natural emergent property of nature. And so all these different things made me think of Geyser being a cool word.
Welcome to another episode of Light with Bitcoin, where we delve into the human side of Bitcoin by chatting with one Bitcoiner at a time to discover their life stories, personal growth, and challenges through the lens of Bitcoin. I'm your host, Vivian Cheng. Thanks for tuning in. Today, the guest who will be joining us is Metamick, founder and CEO of Geyser, a Bitcoin native crowdfunding platform where you can fund project ideas with support from global communities. Geyser has been a valuable resource for developers, content creators, and Bitcoin businesses to take initiatives in building out a Bitcoin standard. To date, there are over 870 projects on the platform connecting community builders from all around the world. Welcome, Mick.
Hey, Vivian. Great to be here.
I know that you've been working on Geyser for the past while, but let's take a step back and talk about yourself. So could you tell me more about yourself?
My background was very much... I was always interested in the humanities, from a bit of a different perspective than most Bitcoiners that are more technical. I studied anthropology and economics in university. We're always fascinated with the different human cultures and the evolution of human societies, and kind of recognizing quite early on that technology was a fundamental piece of humanity, what makes humanity flourish. Very much a technologist in this sense, and I was really curious about I think the interplay between humanity and technology. And although I completely dismissed Bitcoin early on in 2010 when I first heard about it, much later on I decided to give it the adequate attention and kind of realize that actually Bitcoin is a technology of money. And seeing it from that perspective helped me really appreciate Bitcoin as being this thing that democratizes wealth through deflation. And having studying economics, knowing how little economists know about economics, I appreciated Bitcoin for its ability to really completely create a new paradigm.
We connected on LinkedIn, and I realized that we went to exactly the same schools.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that as well. So UBC in Canada, and then LSE in London. So that's funny. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
So we're both like people from a third place going to Canada and the UK for education. And you have a very interesting combination of academic background, whereas you were studying economics. And then later on, you studied anthropology. For those of whom who are not familiar with the academic principle of anthropology, can you share with us what it is? Like, what's the central focus of the subject? And what's the difference between anthropology and sociology or psychology?
Yeah, anthropology is very similar to sociology. Anthropology is a little bit more concerned with indigenous societies that live around the world, to understand really the other, the other. And sociology is often more interested in kind of understanding society, the modern society. Anthropology is more interested in understanding maybe ancient society or just a society that is very different. And why is that interesting is because by looking at how societies are very different, we can actually highlight how different we are as well. And I always did appreciate that evidence perspective, of how people experience the world and really sticking to the facts of daily life. I really like that, which is very different from, say, economics, which takes a very, very high level perspective of the world, which is very abstract.
If you think about it, Bitcoin is actually sits right in the intersection of economics and anthropology.
I did study both anthropology and economics in university at UBC. So I think that helped me more, because I was going to anthropology class being taught one thing, and then you go to economics and you're taught completely the other thing. And then I decided to pursue kind of like a mixture of the two. The various different disciplines providing very, very different understandings of reality of the world. Anthropology I loved because it was all about the human experience. It was all about what is a human experience of the world and for different types of peoples. And then, what is the economic perspective of that? Well, yeah, you are the more you are integrated in the global place, the more opportunities you may have, the more exchange, the more wealth you may also have. But so does also the experience. So it comes along with a lot of stress, a lot of expectations, a lot of debt, and so bringing those two things together was really helpful for me. And what anthropology seeded in me was the understanding that there was something odd in the world. In economics class, everything is nilly-willy, everything is fantastic, growth is off the charts, experts are always right, Krugman is right, Keynesian economics will keep on taking us further up in growth. But what anthropology helped seed in me was this critical perspective of, well, things aren't always great. Experiences of the world are pretty bad. There is this inequality that exists in the world today. But what I didn't agree with anthropology was this idea that inequality is due to the market, the assumption that we are living in a capitalist free market system, and that's where learning more about money, which is not something that either anthropology or economics had done well enough, helped me appreciate a lot of the problems of today, of inequality, of anomie, of just ultra fast-paced environment, is due to this abuse of money that leads people to push really the increase in money supply, which pushes people to require much higher living standards, and therefore increasing just the wealth gap and the opportunities and so forth. So studying multiple disciplines helped me appreciate that no discipline was correct, and that was an incredibly valuable experience, right? For me, that was learning different perspectives, being introduced to Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin Standard for me remains the best anthropology book ever written. It's really, first and foremost, a book about humanity progressing through this new technology, right? From fire, we went to the wheel, we went to hard metals, and then we discovered more and more technology that improves several aspects of our lives. And Bitcoin so happens to be the best technology of money that we've invented or discovered. And so it is an anthropological book in that sense. And I owe it a lot to Saifedean for kind of opening my mind to it. And so for me, that was, really, really, really foundational. And I learned that, it all comes together, through Bitcoin, the anthropology, the economics. For me, it all really, really clicked and made sense. It seemed like there was a vacuum there, and Bitcoin was there perfectly set to fill it up.
Pretty much at this point, every single guest of my show is Orange Pill by Saifedean, like one way or another. This is huge.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You said neither of the discipline studied money well enough. So where did you get that impression from?
I took economics courses, for example, monetary policy and macroeconomics and microeconomics, and nowhere ever do you get asked the question, what is money? And I guess the implicit assumption of money is that money is fiat money. Money is a tool that economists have to tweak the economy and push it further and backwards. And so it's already implied that money is a tool for money is not saving. Money is a medium of exchange and a tool for for tweaking economic growth. And I guess related to that is very much Adam Smith perspective of money is the tool by which you achieve the wealth of nations, but it's not the wealth of people, right? That's different. The wealth of nation, perhaps, because it's a tool for the state, but it's not the wealth of people. It's not, right? It's a very different thing. When it comes to anthropology, there wasn't much. There was this David Graeber, a very famous anarchist anthropologist, who wrote a really good book called Debts, and it gets like 90% there, but it doesn't do that final leap of understanding that, like, what money is, historically.
It was anthropology that introduced me to the thinking of what is money for the first time. I read Homo Sapiens in university, and there was a small blurb of chapter where they were talking about money. And essentially the conclusion is that in the book is that money is merely a network. Is because that people believe in this. I remember this specific moment when I was reading that, and I felt like a light bulb went off. I talked to myself saying, I never really thought about money in this way. So later on, the idea of Bitcoin arrived a little bit easier because of that.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with that perspective though, because if you just assume that it's about belief, which is what if you believe that money is just a belief system, then any belief goes, right? And so their belief is that the belief that will prevail is the one that is endorsed by the powerhouse of the system, that is the state, right? That's the assumption. The problem is that it doesn't look at the account at the historical existence. So it doesn't matter what people believe. The best money always wins because of these properties. And one of them is, well, the key one is, how can you hack it? Can you hack a money? So if you believe that I don't know, here I have a beer because it's nice and warm in the UK. If you believe beer is money, well, and you want to trade it, then I can just create an insane amount of beer and start selling it to you and abuse it until and bring it to basically worthlessness. So it doesn't matter. The belief system is true. It's important, but there's objective reality that will crush your beliefs until you understand your beliefs are wrong. And that's what Harari just doesn't understand. I don't know, understand why he doesn't understand it. Because if you just look at history, people believed that stone rocks, the rhinestones, were money, and their belief system crushed against reality that, the European sellers were trading with them everything that they had in exchange for easily created rhinestones. That's the same thing. The same story is the story for copper, for silver, for every single metal out there. Humans found a way to keep on hacking it until and villages kept on dying, and basically this evolutionary pressure for better money came about. And today we don't even know why we call it the gold standard, but tradition is what basically instills in us this idea that gold is good, that there is a gold standard. Gold standard is made of gold, and so it's stories. It's this is where the belief is grounded by reality. It's not just a belief, an ethereal belief. So yeah, this is where I think is so critical to understand how the objective nature of this is where anthropology fails. Just saying everything is relative, and this is where Harari also fails. But there is an objective axiom that Austrian economics tells us more about, around just these properties that are fundamental, that enable human flourishing and that evolutionarily win over everything else. It's just that people don't realize, even after centuries, and we forget these things. And most people didn't even learn about them consciously. They just learned about them through habits and myths and legends and things like wearing jewelry, like made of gold, right? And then you just know that you just know that gold is good because it's beautiful and it's seen as, a religious ornament, and God, for many religions is gold is a divine rock. So all these religious cultural metaphors go back to gold being the better money. That's all it is, right? It's just trying to crystallize this idea in our lives.
And you're absolutely right. I think what it helped me understand is, previous to that, I've never thought about it. Like, I've just never thought about what is money at all. So this really opened the door of starting to think about that question. And it also made me realize that it's because what you're describing basically is fiat. Is people believe in it. It's a belief system, but people think it works and they don't think twice about it until someday it doesn't. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. Beliefs can collapse. And I think this is something that later on helped me understand, because I remember reading it from the past that it's merely a belief, that if you shift your belief, if you shift your perspective, then it may not be as solid as it seems. So I definitely feel like for just average individual, like for people who are trying to get into Bitcoin, doesn't know where to start and sitting on the fence, reading about something like anthropology, history, especially history, anthropology, and psychology, like these sort of things will ultimately help people like a little bit easier than reading about economics.
And I think that's the problem with economics today, is that it envelops economics in all this jargon of numbers that actually are very. Calculus is not a very complex thing. If you think about the nature of reality, calculus is pretty simple, pretty basic kind of material reality. The physicists of the 1980s, of the 1800s, they thought they had understood reality through just mechanical physics. And we know since then that reality is much more complex, right? We know that, we know that we have, that there's relativity. We know that there's, time works very differently. It's not just a clock that ticks, exactly the same way. The reality is complex, much more complex, and yet economics even today is grounded on the 1800s physics of calculus, pretty much. So it's trying to create economics today is just creating a lot of unnecessary complexity to make people believe, and this is where the word belief comes in as well, because it's all about belief. It's about belief in the economists, belief in the economic machinery, and by throwing around a lot of jargon, a lot of complexity, you ask people, you say that they're experts, and you say who the experts are, who the experts are not, and then you chart a nice linear, graph or a parabola, and you say, this is how the world works. And it's just, it's not. It's a lot more complex. The biggest problem of it being that as soon as you have a spigot where you can let the money flow from, you will have a central point of failure where some of the biggest institutions in existence, and these are big private monopolies or corporates, will try to get access to that spigot. And this is true it's been true now for 50 years with the military industrial complex. We've seen in the last 5 years that it's been true for the pharmaceutical complex. They've been successfully able to access the spigot of power and mint for themselves at no costs trillions of dollars with no repercussions and no, right? So like they printed $8 trillion, whether you agree with vaccines or not. $8 trillion went towards the pharmaceutical industry to develop the vaccines it wasn't a loan. It was direct money for R&D, which we know very little has actually been done in terms of the R&D. It's true for all these big corporations that need to find a nice narrative for them to have access to the spigot of power. And it's just the nature of having this central point of failure, is that who gets access to it, who's able to craft a story that people will believe in, will then have the ability to get access to this and win, because then it's ultimate winning, because you can decide the numbers, right? You can craft a strong enough narrative to do that. And Bitcoin is that alternative, is that system that nobody can offset. It's a system that nobody can access through a spigot of power and make more Bitcoin. And so it's literally the polar opposite of the fiat system. And so it's so I think that's a crazy thing about Bitcoin, right? Is that it doesn't matter the political lenience that you have. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. The key to understanding understanding its power and its use is the fact that whether you believe that it's big pharma or you believe it's like this big centralized entities, both have a role to play here in messing things up. And so the point is not who is doing it. It's just the ability they both have to abuse our power, abuse their power of money, take control over money, and do what they feel is best at that point.
So it can be very short-sighted and lots of unintended consequences. And just like you said, how Keynesian economics defines money is very much within the fiat mindset, which is it serves the state rather than the people, and that ultimately, as we're seeing today, that everything is getting politicized.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a really good way of putting it. It's becoming politicized because those who get in power and can then craft a narrative and get access to those funds.
To this day, what do you think Bitcoin is to you?
Bitcoin is a bit like a mirror to reality for me in some way. It's this new untainted thing that reflects ourselves back, and we're able to look at our own society, our own belief system, as we were discussing, what we think we know, and Bitcoin can kind of reflect back something that looks a little bit different, and it has a lot to teach us. It's almost like resetting humanity or providing this alternative, this escape hatch, to see the world differently and in a more grounded historical way.
If and when we reach hyper-Bitcoinization one day, and fingers crossed, and how do you think it will go down in history? In the discipline of economics, both economics and anthropology, how do you think Bitcoin will be portrayed in these academic disciplines?
I think recognizing Bitcoin as for what it is, which is an innovation, a discovery that changes our perspective on our previous beliefs, right? So anthropology helping us reevaluate the role of money, helping us reevaluate, basically helping us. I think it can lead to a renaissance in terms of understanding humanity again, and looking at it from this objective standpoint of how technology is helping us achieve new thresholds in what humanity can accomplish. I think that would be incredible. And then within economics, I think also, I mean, that's going to be really hard because the entire economics discipline is being challenged by the existence of Bitcoin. You don't need this centralized pool of experts that decide on monetary policy. Bitcoin is the monetary policy. You'll still need economists, but probably not as many, which would be a great thing. People have to get to work and actually build stuff. So I think just being more, I think it can teach all these disciplines to be more humble, to be more to be more objective and grounded on these axioms, to be grounded on objective improvements in humanity, and what society can accomplish. And and hopefully just get us busy building, and stop talking and stop discussing our opinions, because a lot of it is just opinions and everyone's got opinions, and Bitcoin just says get to work, you need to you need to build things, and that's what humanity is. Hopefully helps us be more engineer focused around building the future using Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, be more on the proof of work side, and then just be actually productive.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's talk about Geyser. How did you make the leap of becoming an entrepreneur if you weren't before and started Geyser? And where did the name come from?
No, I didn't have a previous entrepreneurial background. I was part of a startup for a year and a half before Geyser, which was in the Ethereum space. I worked there because, and actually I joined that. It wasn't, and then it sort of pivoted to being an Ethereum company, which was for me an interesting experience. I was open-minded. I was already very much a Bitcoiner, but I was trying to be open-minded and see what I could learn from it, and I learned a great deal. The Ethereum ecosystem in 2020 and 2021 was bustling with activity, and so it did give me a few ideas of just, first of all, maybe ask the question why the hell aren't all these builders building on Bitcoin? But then I noticed a lot of creatives using it to sell tokens, to sell these NFT tokens as well. And what I felt was interesting is that there were a lot of these crowdfunding platforms on Ethereum that were helping to create an ecosystem on Ethereum. So I thought that was interesting. I couldn't see any of those on Bitcoin. For me, that was definitely an interesting perspective. But what really triggered me to build Geyser was, well, first of all, that I didn't want to waste my time on Ethereum anymore. I thought it was a bit of a waste of time. It wasn't gonna, whether Ethereum will exist or not in the future is another question. I just felt like Bitcoin was what mattered. Bitcoin is what changes things. Bitcoin is the new money of the internet. So plus on top of that, you have Lightning, which makes Bitcoin so much more usable, so much more scalable to the world, and a joy, really a joy to use. So with that, I was like, we need to start building tools on Lightning. I started running my node. I started noticing that there were like the infrastructure is there, and what we needed are applications that make Bitcoin more usable and more easy to use. And so on top of that, I started noticing that a lot of people on Bitcoin that I followed on Twitter had all these ideas to do things, to like build a co-working space or come together in a community or orange pill some people on the streets. And I thought every time people were sending QR codes, LNURL codes on Twitter directly, and I thought it was such a bad experience. And I kind of realized that what they were doing was crowdfunding. They were pulling their funds together to make something happen. So it was really a confluence of the technology coming together, Lightning coming together, a lot of the Bitcoin community kind of coming up with all these different new ideas and wanting to use Lightning, and then just Bitcoin being the best money and the infrastructure. So it was all these different things coming together made me kind of start working on this idea of like building a crowdfunding platform on Bitcoin. And so then I proposed it to this friend of mine that I met on Twitter a few years before, Stelios, and showed them some user UIs, some designs of what Geyser was, and he decided to join in on this journey. And then the name Geyser came from our discussions. I remember one day he said, "What about Geyser?" And I don't know why. I still don't know why today, why he said it. I need to actually ask him. But for me, it sparked this idea of like, okay, something that just is incredibly powerful. You have this pressure made, for me, the community creates this pressure around this idea and it kind of lifts this idea to life. That's sort of how I see it. I saw this, beautiful blue color. I saw this kind of renewable energy. I saw this kind of nature-made thing. It's not like artificial. It's just like a natural emergent property of nature. And so all these different things made me think of Geyser being a cool word.
Our marketplace is flooded with bid something. So it's actually quite refreshing to have something that have a very natural tune to it. Approach naming from abstract meanings and from something that can evolve into a metaphor into what we're doing in this space. So it's a really great name.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, agreed. I think it's a pretty cool name. It's very vibrant color and and this this beautiful G with the lightning in the middle, as you can see there. So I'm quite happy with how it evolved.
And you haven't been around for too long, and I've checked that you now have more than like almost 900 projects, and you have 23 plus Bitcoin raised, and with over 40,000 contributors over the world. That's really impressive. And there's so many diverse projects on the platform. You share some examples of the type of projects that have found a home on the platform and the impact they're making.
Definitely. I think there's 3 key meta categories you can look at. So one is Bitcoin education. That's probably the biggest. And it's just basically projects that are seeking to bring Bitcoin more to the world by educating the world. So we have some very big projects on Geyser, including Mi Primer Bitcoin, who's raising funds to just keep on improving their schools. And you have Anita Posh, you have all sorts of creators are using Geyser to help them to send contributions using Lightning, using on-chain, and really easy for them to set up a page. Then you have creatives. You have a lot of creative projects. You have board games, you have Bitcoin trading card games, you have even video games. So Geyser can be used not just a donation platform, but a place where you can sell. We say sell anything, but you could be selling perks, you can be selling badges, you could be selling actual physical objects or board games, and that represents a very, very big amount of funding that happens on Geyser. I think around 50% is our reward-based crowdfunding. And then you have communities. So communities are it kind of related to education, but you may be you want to set up a meetup somewhere, and you want to help raise funding to buy drinks for everyone or something like that. That has happened also quite a bit. You have a community in the metaverse that is, I think there's a project called the Orange Mart that they have a server, a Rust server, and they play together, and it's really community coming together through play. And then you also have builders, like developers, open source development. There's also a bit of that, but
in terms of people who are looking to start a project on Geyser to gauge community support, can you share a little bit of the vetting process? How does it work in the back end?
No, it's entirely self-serve. So creating a project is incredibly easy. You go through the platform. It takes 2 minutes. You have to add your project information, and it just goes live right away. And we did this because very much counter the whole Ethereum or crypto space where it's all about artificial scarcity. We said, no, let's just Bitcoin is all about accessibility. It's all about creating an open space for people to share their share funding. So why are we limiting it? Let's just keep it absolutely open. For me, it didn't make any sense to limit it and gate it. So anyone can create a project, and it's really part of the ethos and the idea that Bitcoin is the money of the world, and the fact that people in third world countries do not have access to this tool of crowdfunding. So if you think about GoFundMe, Kickstarter, they only work in 30 countries. As I've said this many times, like in South America, in Africa, and Asia, there may be platforms there that are specific to that region, but they don't cross over with other regions. So it remains fragmented, fractionalized, localized, and Bitcoin is just this open thing. So and that's a beautiful thing of Geyser, is that 50% of projects come from countries that are not crowdfunded, and around 50% of contributions also comes from there. So it's incredible to see just the amount of funding happening on the platform across borders. It's just beautiful to see that. So basically it's super easy to create a project. We only, we have our terms and regulations. We still are a company and are liable. So we have to, watch out if you're doing illegal activities. We'll have to take a look and possibly take the project down. We don't recommend using Geyser for like fully censorship resistant type activity. We plan to be more to decentralize Geyser more in the future. We're actually working towards it. Nothing I can reveal just yet, but as a company, we will always have to. We always will be a single point of failure. So if you're looking to start your own militia, don't go on Geyser. Use BTCP server or something else, because Geyser is still a company.
I bet as a business, it's going to be very much easier to set up a crowdfunding platform with Bitcoin, because if you imagine a platform like GoFundMe, the type of regulatory hoops they have to jump through just to be able to receive payments from international banks and just to set the gateway up, it's going to be a massive headache. And they can only do so much of that in different places. And in many places, they won't even be able to do it, versus you guys on Geyser, it's global.
And we're not custodial, so I should probably clarify this. But GoFundMe, they custody all the funds. Same with Kickstarter and all the others. While Geyser, all the funds go straight to the creators. We don't custody any funds. Again, funds go straight through, so we cannot freeze any funds. We may have to, if a project is doing illegal activities, we'll have to possibly take the project down, but we can never take their funds.
But that goes further into the principle of don't trust, verify, right? Because it's up to the investors, up to the supporters as well to do due diligence on their part to make sure that the projects they choose to believe in are a solid decision, that they can't rely on a gate man to really help outsource that decision making. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Absolutely. The fact that we make it so easy means that there will be some scams, there will be scammers. And so it's up to the individual to do the proof of work. Now, where Geyser, we plan to do more work on is making this evidence more clear. So if a project has 0 followers, if the creator has 0 followers on Twitter, if there's all sorts of activity that if the project is completely disconnected from the social graph, then there is reason to suspect that maybe the project is not legitimate. That's why we always recommend creators to use their existing Twitter account, because that's really what creates that social graph dynamic. So that's key, and it's on us. It's on us also to make that discovery easier, to show that the existing trust based on existing social networks. So we plan to do more on that too.
Do you see similar risk project on Geyser if Geyser get into something that's heated? And are there any centralized power in the place to shut you down or limit your platform?
Yeah, so Geyser is still very small, so that's probably still unlikely. But if we were to grow substantially, then so what happened with GoFundMe is that they actually froze the accounts of how was it? Yeah, they froze all the accounts of the of people of the funds that were being received, and also they froze the bank accounts of those who sent the money, which was the crazy bit, right? Now that's not possible but also there were some funds that were being sent using Bitcoin, and what they did is that they tracked those addresses and some of the addresses were on Coinbase, and they were able to freeze and take those funds. I think 1/3 of all Bitcoin sent, 1/3 I think was taken. So it's you have to be careful. You have to be careful with this stuff, and it's not like Bitcoin will solve it right away. But what solves it is non-custodial practices. So Geyser makes it easy for you to run. You can connect your node on Geyser, and in which case Geyser is free of charge, right? So if you use your node, all the funds go straight into your node. We've got nothing to do with it. We cannot freeze any funds. Even if you use your Lightning address, again, we cannot freeze. If the government says take this project down, we're going to have to do that. So that's why I recommend, if you're doing something, in the gray zone, or just don't use Geyser. Like Geyser is not for that. Geyser is for the peaceful revolution. Geyser is for the 99% that just wanna crowdfund their ideas. As I said before, there will be more tools that Geyser will make available for these types of censorship-resistant activities. It'll come, they're not out yet, but there will be more of that in the future.
Mm-hmm. I see. And are there any tips that you can share to maximize the impact of a Geyser project? So based on your experience with the more successful projects on the platform, are there any tips you can give, commonalities for upcoming projects to take note and hopefully have more support and more visibility?
Connecting with the social graph, having a community is really, really powerful. Sharing your project, sharing your idea, getting feedback on the idea, all these are incredibly powerful. Selling rewards, not just asking for donation, is also equally powerful. we have a resource for new project creators that they can consult to learn more about it. But yeah, all these different things, recognizing contributions, thanking the funders. And right now, Geyser is very much focused on just helping people fund as easily as possible. But in the future, we plan to add more in terms of helping the creator create a community around their project. Because we notice that the projects are their ideas, but they're also where the ideas flourish. And creators are using Telegram or Twitter or Discord groups, and sometimes that creates a bit of a fragmented experience. Something we need to work on is that it takes effort to share your project. Although that's what most successful projects do, is that they just share their projects on Twitter in their bio. But it does take effort every time you have an update to share the project. So we plan to do more on that, so that if you release a new update on the Geyser project, that data will actually be broadcasted out to your socials much more seamlessly. So we plan to really make it easy for you to make Geyser the place, like you said before, very well, become the home, and help to take that idea forward through the community contributions. Could be monetary contribution, could also be ideas, feedback, right? This is equally, if not more, valuable, because it creates that dynamic environment for an idea to grow.
And I see another exciting thing on the platform is the grants. You're working with more Bitcoin companies these days to have a support space and for people who have great ideas. Can you tell us a little bit more about the grants? Making Geyser the home of these projects, what are some other goals and aspirations that you're working on?
Yeah, so the grants are really a powerful tool, because we realize that, we are still early days, and the amount of funding happening on Geyser is still limited by the number of people using Bitcoin, right? And so when it comes to increasing that, well, we know that there are Bitcoiners out there, OG Bitcoiners that just want to support the Bitcoin ecosystem, and Geyser ends up being a very powerful tool to do that. And so we partner with some Bitcoin OGs that are happy to donate a few funds to these grants, and the funds of which go to very, very, very worthwhile initiatives that support the Bitcoin ecosystem. So we've now had 4, actually, it's been 5 grants now. Some of them are big, around 1 Bitcoin, to some being a lot smaller, like 0.1 Bitcoin. But all of these go towards builders, educators, community builders, visual artists, people that are doing great open source work on Bitcoin and helping Bitcoin adoption. So it's been incredibly powerful, incredible way to also bootstrap and grow Geyser and create a name for ourselves as a go-to crowdfunding platform. And we hope to just really continue this and keep building, keep having grants that can support these early projects that are just in the early days, right? Maybe they just need a really good reason to just get started. And in fact, I think I've heard from the story from a lot of people that the grants was like, okay, wow, I was gonna do this, but this is a really good incentive to just launch my idea and start getting support from community and even get some funds through the grants. And even if it's just a couple $100, it ends up being, a mental switch that people do to say, okay, well, at least it's a starting point. So the idea is to keep growing this, to keep scaling the Geyser grants, keep enabling creators to go out there and build stuff on Bitcoin, educate the world about Bitcoin, and so forth. So it's a powerful tool, and we hope to continue developing it.
You're absolutely right, because when someone starts a new project, it doesn't really matter in a way how much of a financial support they receive. Because I imagine this to be walking in a pitch black place, and you're trying to find the end of the tunnel and finally see some light. And if you're already at the end of the tunnel, then a candle lit, it's not going to make much of a difference. But if you're walking in the very beginning of the tunnel, if you're handed a candle, then it's going to make a huge difference in how you're navigate into these different situations and your conviction. And it provides so much motivation and warmth into encouraging you to continue. Like, I experience this on a daily basis. I'm fairly new into this podcast. The first one just launched like 2.5 months ago, perhaps. I've been lucky enough to receive a lot of community support. Sometimes I wake up to messages telling me, "Oh, I tuned into your podcast and this is what I think," and it honestly makes my day. And it's not even about sats, right? It's about people. Your proof of work gets recognized, and people see value in what you do, and they like your style, and they give you constructive feedback to help you make the project better. And I think that's the power of the Bitcoin community. People are seriously in this together, and they're willing to reach out, and they're willing to lend a hand whenever ever needed. And I want to be that person for in the space as well, right? So I definitely see huge value in getting something started with little candles handed out outside.
Yeah, I love that metaphor.
Right. So do you think you've encountered some challenges when you're in the journey of building Geyser so far?
Finding, things worth building that are venture backable was also a learning experience. There's plenty of incredibly useful tools you can build and people have built out there that don't need venture funding. And so venture funding can come in if you think you have something that can go viral, right? Then you have something that can compete on the marketplace of ideas. So as Geyser, we are, the landscape is currently we're one of the few crowdfunding, basically you could say one of the few Bitcoin applications. Like, there's not that many venture-backed application platforms out there. And so, we're out there, still very early days. We're still pre-seed funded, right? So still very early days, but, we're trying to we're not really even trying to compete really, but I guess you could say like the broader ecosystem involves places like Twitter, tools like Substack, Discord, Patreon, Kickstarter. Like, these are all tools that currently creators use on the web to monetize in some form or another. And we're in a very good place, I think, because we leverage the best money ever. We use Bitcoin. We also have plans to engage and build more on Nostr. So Nostr is also incredibly powerful social network type tool that, if integrated with, can also really boost what you can do on Geyser. So there is so I guess basically what's been challenging is just wrapping your head around all the complexities of what's going on. And what's, for me, it's super exciting because it's really trying to put the puzzles together, right? We were, as a Bitcoiner, I knew that Bitcoin was this piece of the puzzle that was missing. And then Nostr was this other piece of the puzzle that it came slowly, but we were eventually really able to understand the massive potential that it can provide, especially for broadcasting activity. We go from a platform that is an island to being an island with highways in some way. It's a very powerful thing that Nostr does. So putting all these pieces together has been what's really challenging, but also incredibly exciting. I think what I'm trying to grapple my head around is this idea that I think we're building something that both at Geyser and I think overall the Bitcoin ecosystem and on Nostr, we're building this new creator economy. We're building this new thing that just doesn't exist. And again, to me, this is what's super exciting and yet really challenging because there's no word for it. It's just this new thing. This we used to work, in brick and mortar places. Now there's this opportunity to create an economic system, on the web, on Bitcoin, on these decentralized protocols. So there's this new thing happening. There's this new marketplace of ideas, where does it stop? Where are the limitations? And I think that's the challenge. Is it's impossible right now to define where the limits are. It's a new paradigm. It's like ending up in a new continent and not knowing how far off the continent will go. It probably has limits, but there's a lot that's going to be possible on it.
It's the process from 0 to 1, from having nothing at all to having something, and continue to build upon that. And that's super exciting. And this is a common consensus where I chat with people work in Bitcoin and people just believe in Bitcoin. The time on Bitcoin Standard, it seems like it's so much faster and it's so much more compact, in the sense that within a relatively short period of time, so much can happen. If you continue to put in the work consistently, then it gets noticed in the space, and it gets noticed for the value you have provided, and the contribution you've made into the ecosystem, and people genuinely appreciate that and they want to help you. So it's definitely a very good problem to have, I would say. The fact that you're global and it's literally available for everyone and anyone with internet, that they can start a project, they can contribute, and they can support. Like it's huge, because all of these people, we all need Bitcoin one way or another, wherever we are, right? So there's huge potential.
The whole thing around borderlessness is incredibly powerful, right? And you have geographic borderlessness, right? Anyone with the internet connection can use Geyser. But then there is the borderlessness when it comes to the platform versus the protocol. So again, as I mentioned before, the island analogy, right? As an island, there's still borders. Right now, Geyser is still a platform. But were it to be much more integrated within a protocol of information, of events, well, Geyser is not just borderless from the perspective of geographic access, but is borderless from the information availability perspective as well. Geyser is going to look very different in the future, and it's really aiming to achieve this like openness, connectedness of ideas, of people, to make these the same vision, right? The same idea of making ideas happen.
And one other thing I find specifically exciting about Bitcoin companies is that a lot of, or Bitcoin initiatives in general, is that we are the kind of people that are willing to take the risk and have the courage to build in public. And the fact that you put together a product or a service or something of your ideas throw it into the void and see how it goes, and get feedback from here and there, and work on it continually, watch it evolve along with the community, all in public. It means that people can really, in a way, grow attached to the progress, and they feel like they're part of it, and they grow a emotional attachment, and they grow emotional sentiments towards the project itself. And that's beautiful, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, and the fact that we as individuals to grow along with something bigger than us, to something that we believe in, is hugely motivating on an individual level. Because you see all these positive changes happening, and then you start to reflect, what can I do? What can I do with my life? What should I be doing with my own ideas? And Geyser provides a perfect platform to do that on the Bitcoin Standard. So truly well done. And lots of great things, lots of great projects will be you guys will be the safety in the crowdfunding space. Let's put it this way.
Let's do it.
Where's the best place to stay close to your work and stay close to Geyser?
We're quite active on Twitter, on Noster, Geyser Fund. You can find us pretty easily in both Twitter and Noster. We have a Telegram as well, which you can join and get to know more about. Add feedback, give us feedback. We sometimes provide product ideas, looking for feedback from the community. Soon enough, we'll be making some important announcements that will make it easier for developers out there if they want to contribute in some way to do so more openly. Any
final thoughts for the Live with Bitcoin audience?
Bitcoin is really a process, and everyone has their own journey to it. What's important to know is that it requires really changing sometimes sometimes not, but it does sometimes require changing a lot of what you thought was true, and learning, a lot of learning, and thinking about the technical perspectives. What is money? So it definitely requires an open-mindedness, but it's also what makes it so exciting and so interesting, because you get to learn so much from really, really smart people. So yeah, so really vouch for anyone just to get going, learn, keep kind of giving fire to this curiosity, because it leads down some really interesting paths, good paths. Bitcoin
I
is
bet. Yeah,
good.
I bet.
Yeah,
I can attest to that.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Mick. And it's been great to have you. Best wishes to Geyser. I think you guys are up for a great future, along with all the contributors in this space who will be using Geyser as a main battlefield to really fuel their passion and ideas. So we're in this together.
Thank you so much, Vivian. It's been a pleasure.